Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Ranking the Albums. Today, we're going to take a look at the catalog of legendary New York thrash act Anthrax. That's right. We've had loads and loads of people asking for Anthrax, and we knew we'd get to them eventually. I've got a weird history with Anthrax. I was a huge, huge fan in the 80s into the early 90s. Went to see them live many, many times, had all their albums on vinyl back in the day. And then I kind of like fell off the Anthrax train in the 90s. I still was following them when John Bush first joined the band, because, of course, I was a big fan of John's vocals with Armored Saint. So when Joey Belladonna left and John joined, I was really into that first album that they released together. And then I kind of like didn't really listen again for a long time. And, in more recent years, whenever we talk about like kind of like classic thrash bands from the 80s, I generally have not said a lot of positive things about Anthrax because I have found that while I love their stuff back in the day, I found like when I go back to Anthrax, especially those classic albums, they don't kind of sit as well with me anymore like they did back then. And I found that I like the more kind of serious take on thrash from other bands of the time, like, Megadeth and Slayer and Exodus and the German bands and Overkill and Testament and whatnot. Uh, but I decided not long ago that I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go and check out all of these albums that I didn't buy and didn't really pay any attention to since after that Sound of Perseverance album. Sound of White Noise. I got Death on the Brain. And just kind of get back in touch with the band and then go and revisit those early albums again to see if I'm still feeling the same way. And I must say, I've been pleasantly surprised. I still think I prefer a lot of the other classic thrash bands from the day over Anthrax, but in revisiting and going back into this catalog, I have found that there's still some stuff that really speaks to me from the old days, and some of the more recent albums are pretty damn good. So let's get to it. We got 8 albums in total from the New Yorkers here. Of course, Charlie Benante, Frank Bello, Dan Spitz, Scott Ian, and the core of the band early on. And then, of course, you got a couple of vocal switches throughout their career, but Joey Belladonna, for the most part, the main guy singing for the band. So let's go to my number, and I don't have props for my number 10 and 11, and you can kind of probably figure out why. So my number 11 is going to be Stomp 442, which was released in 1995. This is their seventh album. They're on Electric Records here. This one's produced by the Butcher Brothers, like a little conglomerate of guys there producing. Dan Spitz, their longtime lead guitar player, has left by this point. You got all lead guitars played by Paul Crook on this album. However, he's not an official member of the band. We've also got Dimebag Darrell from Pantera, Mike Tempesta, and Zach Throne also contributing some lead guitar work on this album. It's kind of a weird album. I really like Sound of White Noise quite a bit, but even that was a little bit of a change for them. But here, they're going off into different directions. There's lots of alternative elements, groove metal, really no thrash at all on this album. The way John Bush's vocals are produced is kind of harsh. I don't really like the guitar tones much on this album. They're kind of thin, kind of tinny. Give John credit for trying some new things on here, but they were using like all sorts of things in the studio to kind of give the band some different elements and different feels. To me, it doesn't really sound like Anthrax. But there are a couple decent songs. In His Zone is a good song, good track. Riding Shotgun I like, and Grunt and Click is pretty decent too. But the rest of this album, just to my ears, just bad. Just doesn't really sound like Anthrax, and it just sounds like a band trying to figure out where they fit in a changing metal landscape, which in the middle of 1995, right? We know new metal's not quite here. Grunge is kind of dying. Alternative rock is kind of all happening at the time. Hip hop is big. So, what does Anthrax do here, right? Playing thrash, not really the thing to do at the time. Doesn't really work to me. That's number 11. My number 10 is going to be Volume 8. So this is the album that came right after that, a couple of years later. It's called Volume 8, The Threat is Real. 1998 is their eighth album. They're on Ignition Records at this point in time. Paul Crook again produces the album. Still not an official member of the band, but again, he and Dimebag, apparently they had a great relationship with Dime at the time. So those guys are adding lead guitars. Lead guitar work is pretty decent on the album, of course. Got a song like Crush, decent enough song, but I don't like the production, man. The guitars are muddy, they're grungy, just doesn't sound like Anthrax to me. Catharsis, total alternative rock, not big on that. Inside Out, it's got some really good riffs, good chorus, but again, it's kind of like this like new metal kind of vibe that's kind of like permeating their music. The pre-chorus sounds totally of that era. P&V rocks, but man, then they do Toast to the Extras, and it's like country. Like, what? Anthrax? Come on, give me a break. Killing Box, great drums from Charlie on that one. Charlie's always great. The riffing's kind of inspired on that. So, yeah, I mean, overall, this is just another weird, strange album. Some decent stuff, some bad, forgettable stuff. Overall, I'm not really a fan. And like I said, I dig the band. I love John, but man, these two albums just don't really do it for me. So that's number 10. And for number 9, we're going to go back to 1988. I'm going to go with State of Euphoria, their fourth album. Never really liked the cover. It's kind of jokey to me. Megaforce Records, Island Records, right, depending on where you live. Co-produced by the band along with Mark Dodson. To me, this was and still is a pretty big letdown after the Great Among the Living album, which was the album that really broke them. But there are some good songs on here. Be All End All is pretty good. Out of Sight, Out of Mind. Oh, those are good. I never liked Antisocial. I think it's just a ridiculous song. Who Cares Wins isn't too bad. But the production of this album is missing some bite. Among the Living just is a great sounding album. This, not so much. Schism is good. Might be the best song on the album for me. It's just good thrashy track. Misery Loves Company, don't like that at all. Finale's pretty good. Good riffing. Overall, a weak album. Couple good songs though, but yeah, just such a massive disappointment based on what came before. But I do know people who love this album, so maybe it's just me. All right, number 8. What do I got for number 8? We're gonna go to 2003. We've Come for You All, ninth album. Kind of dig the cover. It's got like a comic book feel to it. Sanctuary / Nuclear Blast Records, depending on what territory you live in. Co-produced by the band along with Scrap 60. Last album with John Bush. He split after this. The beginning of the follow-up album, he decided to kind of take his leave from the band. Rob Caggiano's on lead guitar on this. What Doesn't Die? To me, sounds like a band. It's the first song on the album. Sounds like a band trying to get back to their roots, to their thrash roots. Good track, cool riffs, big grooves, blazing lead guitar. Bush sounds amazing on it. I really like that a lot. You got the heavy and grinding Superhero, Refuse to Be Denied. That's a pretty crushing song. Safe Home. That's not all that interested. Any Place But Here. Kind of catchy. I don't know how metal it is, but it's okay. Nobody Knows Nothing. That's a pretty good rager. I like that. Strap It On is really nothing special, but it's got a screaming Dimebag solo on. Again, Dime appears on the album once again. Black Dahlia is a pretty cool, menacing metal sort of thrashy track. Taking the Music Back is great. Really like that a lot. It's just heavy. It's memorable. It's catchy. Really like that a lot. You got some backing vocals from Roger Daltrey on that one. Pretty cool. Overall, pretty good album. Pretty good album. I think the band getting back on track here, which is pretty good to see. So I like that one. That's number 8. Number 7, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning for 1984's Fistful of Metal debut album. I know there's probably a lot of people who would rank this a lot higher. This is the only one with original bassist Dan Lilker. Of course, he would leave to go form Nuclear Assault. And this is the only album featuring Neil Turbin, right? Megaforce Records, produced by Carl Canady, very prominent guy on the thrash scene, worked with a lot of bands here on the East Coast. Fast and Furious stuff all the way, very raw, really raw compared to everything that came after. Death Rider is a really cool kind of neck snapping thrasher. Lots of screaming from Neil Turbin. We'll talk more about him in a bit, but he's, to me, is pretty one-dimensional, but pretty serviceable on this track and throughout the album. Metal Thrashing Mad. That's a cool early thrash anthem. Really like that a lot. I'm 18, the cover of the Alice Cooper classic. It's kind of useless. I would rather have another original tune. I love the song, but it's okay. Charlie Benante's drums on Panic are tremendous. Another killer thrash cut, really good. Subjugator, it's got some cool riffing, good solos from Dan Spit. Soldiers of Metal, razor sharp thrash anthem. That's a great song. But you know, when once you get to this part in the album, Neil's vocals are starting to grate on me. He's just very one-dimensional. He's just doing these unnecessary screams, and he's really not even all that good at it. Death from Above, that's kind of generic. Anthrax, the title track. Well, the title track, name of the band track. That's pretty decent, like that. Across the River is a blazing instrumental. I mean, you know, it really shows that these guys could play. I'm amazed they never did more of this. Very, very cool stuff. And then Howling Furies closes, and that's, you know, one of their stronger tracks from this era. Great mid-paced riffing, just a really good, strong song. Overall, here, I mean, I think the band are still finding their way. I think, you know, moving on from Neil Turbin was the best decision they made because he's, like I said, he's just really one-dimensional, and I think he's kind of holding them back a little bit on here. But you know, the kind of like the genesis of Anthrax is right here, and they would kind of move on from here. But I know a lot of people who love this, and this is their favorite Anthrax. So I mean, I get it. I kind of like where they went next a little bit more. So all right, so number 6 is their 10th album from 2011, which is called Worship Music. Nuclear Blast Records, produced by Rob Caggiano and Jay Rustin. Here, Joey Belladonna comes back on vocals. So, like I mentioned before, originally this album was to have John Bush, but he decided to pull out of the band right in the beginning of the whole process, and they wound up with Joey back in the band once again. Earth on Hell is a great old school thrash banger, just great. I mean, Joey still sounds great. Really, really good stuff there. The Devil You Know, straightforward metal, but still good. Fight Until You Can't. That's anthemic, fast, raging thrash, just like Anthrax play. Really like that. I'm Alive, pretty good mid-pace banger. In the End is their tribute to Ronnie James Dio and Dimebag Darrell. Crusher of a song, really good. Like it a lot. The Giant, just total thrash. Love the riffing, memorable chorus. Judas Priest, of course, is their tribute to Priest. You'll hear some little references in a couple of spots throughout the song to classic Priest stuff, which is pretty cool. The Constant, that's pretty good. Again, trying to get back to Anthrax style thrash. I really like it. I'm not big on The Crawl, but Revolution Screams is a lot of fun. It's like this big long 15-minute track, but it's really only like it's like 6 minutes of just some, you know, really cool metal and then a lot of silence. And then at the end, they pick up the pace and they're bashing again, but there's like some weird rapping thrown in there too as well, which I don't really care about. But I think the first 6 minutes of the song is really good. So I think it's a really strong album and a really good return to form for them. So that's 2011. And I'm going to go with, for number 5, I'm going to go with For All Kings, which is their album from 2016, 11th and most recent album, also on Nuclear Blast Records, produced by Jay Rustin once again. You got a guy named John Denai on lead guitar now. It's got You Gotta Believe, great opener. I mean, just total thrasher, really, really good. Very old school sounding, just love it. Monster at the end, another good one, catchy chorus. Joey's still singing really good on these albums. I mean, he sounds really good. Title track crushes, great riffs. You got Breathing Lightning, which is just a kind of mid-pace kind of cruncher. Really like that a lot. You got Evil Twin, snarling, fast-paced ripper. Again, classic Anthrax sound. Crushing anthem, Bloody Evil Wings. The Battle Chose Us is just menacing and dark and serious. More killer riffs. I like the more dark, serious tone of this album. All right, because there's one of the things I've always had, you know, looking back on my kind of career with Anthrax and being a fan, is that as I've gotten older, the kind of more jokey elements of the early part of the band I don't like as much as I used to, but I like the kind of darker nature of this because this just is just serious modern day thrash album and riffs all over the place, great vocals, memorable songs. I really dig it. So that's my number 5. My number 4. This is an album that back in the day I just kind of ignored. But now looking back on it, I really dig it a lot. And I'm going to go with Persistence of Time, which is their 5th album from 1990. A great, to me, improvement on State of Euphoria, which to me was a massive disappointment. And I think it kind of turned me off from Anthrax for a number of years. But this now going back on it's kind of long, but this has held up really, really well. So Megaforce Island Records, once again, Mark Dodson, again, co-producers along with the band. Last to feature Joey for a number of years, but to me, the band seemed to be getting back to basics to what they were doing on Among the Living. Time is a crusher to start off the album. Um, you got Dan and Ian coming up with some really cool riffs and solos on this record. Blood is another good one. I mean, most of the side one songs are all really heavy and long. It's kind of like And Justice for All kind of influenced here, which is not surprising because that album came out, what, a year or so before this. So not surprising. Keep It in the Family, again, another long 7-minute long track. Could have been a leftover on Among the And Justice for All. And even the guitar tones are very similar, I think. And it's just got this big, kind of doomy, massive kind of guitar tone going on. In My World, it's catchy, crushes. Gridlock is fast and furious. Belly of the Beast is a total ripper. I think their cover of the Joe Jackson song "Got the Time" is a ton of fun, and it's one of my favorite metal covers. I think they just totally make it their own. Really, really good. Hate Red, another crusher. One Man Stands, more kind of And Justice for All style, thrashy, relentless, heavy riffing, like it. And then Discharge, total nonstop assault to close out the album. And I think, like I said, really, really strong album. So it was good to kind of revisit this again recently to say, hey, you know what? Actually pretty damn good and much better than I remember it. So that's coming in at number 5. Number 3, I'm going to go with The Sounds of White Noise from 1993. Their 6th album, band now on Elektra Records. Joey Belladonna's gone. Armored Saints John Bush is in the band. Last with Dan Spitz. Dave Jordan producing. Less of a thrash album, more of kind of like straight up metal with a little bit of groove influences. It's not all that different from what John was doing with Armored Saint to an extent, but still a little kind of like New York groovy thrash thing, underbelly, right? But it's not really a thrash album. I mean, Potter's Field is great. It's just a great opener. I mean, John just sounds right at home. He's just roaring away all throughout this album. Only is a really, really kind of catchy, crunchy song. It's got little like alternative elements, but I don't care. I just think it's a great song. And the chorus is just so good. And the guitar soloing is great. Just really good. Really good. I love Room for One More. Killer song, just rumbling behemoth of a track. The riffing is great, man. Just so good. Love John's vocals, and the chorus is just absolutely snarling. Love it. Package Rebellion is really memorable. High Pro Glow is angry, does just what it needs to do. Invisible's heavy. 1,000 Points of Hate, that's kind of speedy. That's almost thrash. Black Lodge, that's kind of weird and psychedelic. Burst is pretty good, kind of thrashy, kind of speedy. And This Is Not an Exit is a total gem. That's the closer. I love that a lot. I love the slow build to that, and the whole last half of the song is just amazing. And Bush is just screaming up a storm. It's great. Just so good. I think it's a great debut for a band that made a major change with their singer. I think John knocks it out of the park. But of the 4 with John, easily this one's my favorite. This one, the last one's pretty good too, but the 2 in the middle don't really do much for me. But I love this. I loved it when it came out. I still dig it today. Totally cool stuff. And my number 2 is going to be, and it could be my number 1 some days, but I think it's today it's my number 2. I'm going to go with Spreading the Disease from 1985, second album. Megaforce Island Records, Carl Canady once again producing. Brand new members, Joey Belladonna and Frank Bello in the band, of course. Interesting pick in Joey Belladonna because, I mean, he doesn't really have a metal background whatsoever. I always loved this. I remember when I had the vinyl back in the day. It was cool to see that. He didn't have a metal background at all, but the band really, really loved his voice. He was more into like AOR, melodic rock stuff. But man, he fits right in. The band loved him. I think he's a huge improvement over Neil Turbin. AIR opens up, total crusher. Great vocals, plenty of riffs, soaring chorus. Just love it. Frank's bass leads on Lone Justice, so good. Another kick-ass song. Madhouse is a really fun thrash classic. SSC Stand or Fall, total ripper, great chorus, a lot of great choruses on these 2 albums that I'm going to feature next. Dan is just firing off some wild solos for through the whole album, which is really cool. The Enemy, That's kind of like a precursor to Indians, right? Kind of similar type of arrangement, similar riffing, big chugging riff, great drums. Aftershock, total blazing, another great vehicle for Charlie's drums. Charlie's just such a good drummer. Armed and Dangerous, probably my favorite song here. Just so good. I love the machine gun riffing. I love the vocals, and the whole second half of the song. It's a great slow build to like a furious second half. Just totally, totally love it. Then you got Medusa, mid-pace thumper. I like that. And then Gung Ho, speed of light thrasher, that easily could have fit on the debut. I really like the production of this album, and to me, it's one of their best albums overall. Like I said, on some days, might be even be my number one. But my number one for now is going to be Among the Living. 1987 third album, Megaforce Island Records. Eddie Kramer producing this time around, one and only time they work with him. Opening title track, Among the Living, is so good. Band firing on all cylinders. Big riff and speedy drums. Completely memorable chorus. Just so good. Caught in the Mosh kind of became an anthem for all of us in the mosh pits and the clubs back in the day. You know, all of a sudden now they're kind of like their trademark gang vocals, the backing vocals are coming up into play. Caught in the Mosh, just so good. I Am the Law, catchy, but yet it's heavy hitting, pummeling. I love NFL, NFL Dick Fussing, however the hell you say that. That's just so much fun. We loved that back in the day. It's just raging song. Skeleton in the Closet, razor sharp thrash. Just totally love that. Indians might be my favorite song by the band. It's just such a great mosh pit classic. It's just got such a catchy groove and riff. So good. And then when it kicks in, man, I can't tell you how many times seeing Anthrax live back in the day that I was right in the middle of that mosh pit when this song was playing. And a lot of these songs, right? That this was a band you went to see and you just got involved. Whenever I saw Anthrax, I was never sitting off to the side. I was always on the floor in the pit somewhere. So good. One World, Manic Thrasher, probably one of the underrated kind of cut on here, really good, great riffing, great solos. Charlie's drums are so good. ADI Harv at all, another groovy thrasher. Scott's just showing off throughout this whole album what a great riff master he is. Man, he's got that right hand just going crazy. And then Imitation of Life, another kind of mile a minute fast song that just ends the album on a high note. So yeah, I mean, this is got to pick this one. Got to pick this one. It was my favorite back in the day, not by much, because I think these two, if you're going to get just two Anthrax albums, it's got to be these two. But that's my one and two. So Among the Living, Spreading the Disease, and rounding out the top three, Sounds of White Noise. You got Persistence of Time, and For All Kings, Worship Music, Fistful of Metal, and all the rest. So yeah, good stuff. Like I said, it's been cool revisiting this catalog because I think that now all these years later, I can kind of welcome Anthrax back into my music listening life. And while, like I said, while I would still rather listen to Megadeth or early Slayer or Testament or whatnot, but I still, have a soft spot for some of these albums. And like I said, I really do appreciate some of the latter ones, right? The last couple I think are pretty damn good. So let us know how you would rank the Anthrax catalog down in the comments below. And visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell to get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below, we got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, our merch page, and our Cameo page. Thank you in advance for all your support there. And we'll see you soon here with more stuff. I am Pete Pardo. See you next week here on Ranking the Albums. Till then, take care. Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.